One thing I've learned over the past 7 years. In any game, there is always an opponent. And there is always a victim. Welcome, fellow seekers of knowledge. Today, I want to explore the nature of our ego with you, or more precisely, its source. After all, everything has a source. And I plan to do this based on Guy Ritchie's film Revolver. This film is over 20 years old, yet I believe it remains not only the most underrated, but also the most philosophically profound. What makes this film unique is its deeper, hidden meaning.
This film is inherently understood by only a few. It is not meant for the masses. This was the film I wanted to make, and in fact, it is the film I like the most. Rock'n'Rolla is simple, Revolver is not.
On one hand, it's just a well-made action film, and in this genre, Guy Ritchie is a true master. From a filmmaking standpoint, it's just another high-quality movie about bad guys and their conflicts. But this film was not made for its action scenes.
I'm trying to show that while you're fighting external enemies, there's a much more frightening enemy, the one within yourself.
And what about the other side? How did the audience interpret the author's intention? Ask your friends. What is the main message of the film? Most people don't even see this hidden layer of the film. But not you. You definitely know about the other side. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here with us. Some reviewers have managed to get quite close to understanding its deeper meaning. But we'll try to go even deeper.
One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious.
Jung suggests that to truly perfect oneself, one must first face their dark side, not ignore it.
You'll find it where you least want to look.
But to confront your dark side, you must find the enemy that embodies it. And this enemy hides where you least want to look. Where to go and how to defeat the enemy is described in great detail in the film. We won't repeat that, as many have already discussed it. But after watching, one question remains open. And in essence, it's the most important one. Who is this enemy? After all, it's impossible to defeat the enemy if you don't know who they are. He even has a name, Mr. Gold. But who is he? Here, Guy Ritchie didn't give even a hint, or rather, he hinted at everything at once. With these hints, we will try to figure out who is really the protagonist's enemy, who is Mr. Gold.
What the hell are you?
So, what hints did the movie give us about Mr. Gold? Let's try to piece the puzzle together.
No one sees gold, but gold sees everything. He tells what to do and when to do it. I protect you, and I control you.
If I say you're scared,
You're scared.
He hides behind every human pain, behind every crime committed. How can I be behind every pain, behind every crime, if I don't even exist? Do you know who Sam Gold is, Mr. Green? You should know him, Because he knows who you are. You think he's your best friend. He is in every one of their heads. And they trust him. Because they think they are him. He hides here, pretending to be you.
But if he's so all-powerful, why is he hiding at all?
No one lives, and this pleases gold.
The phrase means that no one can truly live, be free, happy, and genuine, while under the control of their vices, fears, and greed.
Sam Gold doesn't meet with anyone at all. You're still in prison, Jake, but the truth is you never really left.
Haven't we heard this before? Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage. Into a prison that you cannot taste or see or touch. A prison for your mind. Everyone's in the game. And nobody knows it. And all of this. This is his world. He owns it. He controls it. We forced you to start a war with the only enemy that has ever existed. If you try to destroy him, to save them, they will destroy you. To save him, they will protect their friend at any cost. It's beautiful, man. You have to admire the opponent's elegance.
What inferences can be made from all these hints? Not a human, but possesses immense power in this world. Knows everything about everyone, manipulates everyone, has his own motives and goals, plays his global game, keeps us in ignorance and illusions, yet hides from us, afraid to reveal himself. All right, who's in the lineup to play Mr. Gold? Ego, as it is claimed, is a part of the human personality. Probably the most well-known definition belongs to Carl Jung.
The ego is the center of consciousness, a complex of representations, which constitutes the center of the field of consciousness and appears to possess a very high degree of continuity and identity.
But Jung builds his framework around the term consciousness, but he leaves the concept of consciousness itself undefined. To this day, no one has managed to explain what consciousness truly is. How is it possible to define something by referencing something else that remains undefined? In other words, no one still really understands what consciousness or the ego truly are. But everyone gladly and widely uses these terms to describe what they can't explain. We just blame the ego for everything we don't understand. Kind of a scapegoat for our confusion. However, scientific formulations aren't our focus today. We're not here to debate the nature of the ego, maybe some other time. But today, We just want to figure out, is ego a good fit for the role of Mr. Gold? Let's just assume, within the framework of this hypothesis, that deep within the labyrinth of the human psyche is a counterproductive part of one's personality called the ego. A kind of personal troll living in everyone's head. If everyone had their own individual ego, we would each make our own unique foolish mistakes and possess our own distinctive vices. All vices are absolutely standard for everyone. Their number hasn't changed since the beginning of time. Only the degree varies. And people have been making the same foolish mistakes over and over again since the beginning of time. And they don't notice it because they don't analyze what's happening around them or the actions of others. People are focused only on their own experience, though in this case, the word deserves quotation marks. The ego has no reason to disguise itself, afraid of being exposed. It's just a virtual part of our personality. Everyone has an ego. It cannot hide because it is not something with its own mind. It acts completely openly and according to behavioral laws. The ego is not an independent personality, but rather a mechanism or function that helps us interact with the world. Its existence is based on illusions, defense mechanisms, and social masks. If you don't already know that you have an ego, go to any psychoanalyst, and they'll show it to you. It will definitely be helpful. How can a virtual part of our personality control the entire world? Can our ego, our inner individual troll, possess the kind of power that Mr. Gold has? No, our inner troll, the ego, certainly doesn't compare to a global-scale villain to the all-powerful Mr. Gold. We're just wasting our time trying to fit it into the costume of a villainous superhero. If Mr. Gold weren't afraid to reveal himself, he could very well be God, the creator of this world. Would the true God do everything secretly, afraid of being exposed? Well, unless this God is some kind of usurper. A flawed, ignorant demigod acting in secret, away from the main good creator. A certain Demiurge. This hypothesis is hinted at directly in the film. The mythical Gnostic god,
Yaldabaoth,
an imperfect demigod, unaware of how to create good, who fashioned our world according to his own understanding, imbuing us with his mind and other flaws. We see the evil and injustice of this world, but we can't accept that it was all intended this way. After all, the true creator is surely kind. He loves us. That's why we came up with a source of evil, a demiurge, who operates in secret, away from the true creator. And here's a question for the supreme God. How can a supreme lord not know what his creations are doing? Let's leave this dualistic hypothesis to the Gnostics. It's their field. In Christian doctrine, there is also a character who perfectly fits the role of Mr. Gold. In essence, it's very similar to the second hypothesis. There is dualism, with both good and evil. The difference is that this time, the Supreme Lord knows everything. He is aware of the evil and what it's doing on Earth. A phrase from the movie, "The greatest trick that he ever pulled was making you believe that he is you," could support this hypothesis. However, the original phrase by Charles Baudelaire sounds like this. "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. The question is, why did Guy Ritchie change the phrase? Perhaps because he didn't want the entire depth of his film to be reduced to the classic biblical struggle between good and evil. How does the Almighty Lord allow the devil to do all this to people, his beloved creations? There's no direct answer in the Bible, but several passages collectively suggest that God gives people a choice, freedom of will, and sets them through a kind of test. I don't know how it was in the time of Adam and Eve. Perhaps it was a fair competition. But in the modern world, Mr. Gold has arranged things in such a way that there is almost no choice or freedom of will. He pulled an unforeseen trick. Instead of a fair struggle for the souls of people, he replaced their values and priorities. He instilled his own notions of good, of relationships in society, and of freedom into people. The bigger the trick, the older the trick, the easier it is to pull. You believe it can't be that old, and it can't be that big. For so many people, to have fallen for it. He trained them to consider as normal what was never intended to be normal. But the greatest trick that he ever pulled was making you believe that he is you. By taking him for themselves, people are completely convinced that they are doing the right thing. They don't even suspect the substitution.
I am you.
You are not me. The hypothesis proposed by Castaneda suggests that our world has been enslaved by certain inorganic beings, capable of manipulating the consciousness of living creatures. According to him, these beings feed on human energy and manipulate our consciousness to keep us in a state of ordinary reality, limiting our perception and spiritual growth. They create the illusion of a separate self in people, ego, and force us to act within certain patterns. We cannot detect them using any instruments because they are not composed of the matter we know. Castaneda claims that people who are unaware of the existence of these entities become their victims, surrendering their life force to these forces, leading to spiritual and energetic depletion. These entities feed on human energy, especially the kind that is released in states of fear, stress, or negative emotions. Castaneda said that these beings implanted a belief system in our consciousness, limiting our perception and making us see the world only as they want. This makes us controllable and takes away our freedom. These beings fear only one thing, being discovered by us. And we can notice them in altered states of consciousness, such as during meditation. You can explore this concept in more detail in the books of Carlos Castaneda. It is worth noting that Castaneda is not the only one who refers to parasites of consciousness. Throughout history and across different civilizations, there have been similar entities or concepts. The Gnostics called them archons. Occultists referred to them as larvae. Esotericists coined the term egregores for them. And in religious traditions, they were called demons or evil spirits. People have long suspected their existence. As if thousands of parasites living in our bodies weren't enough, there are also those living in our minds. That's all the versions I have. If you have any other ideas, feel free to share them with us in the comments. As you can see, there are many candidates for the role of Mr. Gold. Choose the concept that suits you best. But does it really matter what other name we give Mr. Gold, or which concept we choose? The important things we need to understand are the following. He is real, no less real than we are. His presence shapes our lives every single day. He is devilishly smart and cunning. He should not be underestimated. There are ways to resist him. We all hear his voice in our heads, yet most people mistake it for their own. We truly can expose his tricks. The elevator scene is precisely about that. Jake forced Mr. Gold to reveal his true face in that moment. How each of us can recognize the reality of Mr. Gold. You need to get into the elevator and stop on the 13th floor. Just in case, that was a joke. But in reality, it's not that hard. You just need to start analyzing your thoughts, emotions, and actions. The key is not to identify with the thoughts that come, but to observe and analyze them impartially, and then you'll realize who is behind your thoughts. You'll understand that they have their own source, and it's not you. Suppose a thought comes to your mind. Analyze it. What is this thought about? What emotion does it evoke in you? What action does it prompt?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
What?
I can hear you. I'm on to you.
Try it out. If it doesn't work, I'll publish a detailed guide later. We can indeed start playing our own game. The sequence of actions is roughly as follows. 1. Realize that we are being manipulated. 2. Identify the player. 3. Stop identifying with them. 4. Stop seeing them as a friend. 5. Understand that they have their own motivation. 6. Stop believing them. 7. Study their methods and patterns. 8. Figure out what they keep catching you on. 9. Identify their weak spots and exploit them. You don't control me. I control you. If you want to get smarter, play a smarter opponent, and this opponent is the most smart one you can find.
No one will believe you anyway. We don't exist.